Hey there. So I thought I would quickly bring up the SOLIDWORKS model again that I could not get the internals parts to mate into now that I have a couple minutes in my office. That I would just show you what that looks like. So we are going to swap over to that somehow, some way. Okay, here we go. Okay, so here is our side table lamp. And so what I have done is gotten it into an assembly by clicking Insert Components. And I'll take you through right here the mates that I've defined. So again, the mates are just telling it where you want things to line up. So you can always look back through the mates that you have defined and change them if you want to. But for now, what I had done is told it that I wanted a concentric mate. I can just click into here so you can see what places I've shown is this face outside here is mated to, hide that, one of these cylindrical faces here. And again, this is just the solid part that I downloaded from the GrabCAD library. I did notice when I was bringing it in that at the time, the screw down feature that would hold this lamp holder in place was way out at the very top. So inside of that solid part, I did a move copy body and just moved it down the z-axis so that it was in a little more reasonable position. If you've ever used one of these, they just essentially pinch closed around an item so that it's fixed in place. So brought that to a more reasonable place and saved it. So I can adjust that at any point, but that concentric mate has been made between this surface and then the outer surface of my lamp. So that's all good. And then the last one, actually I'm just going to hide, and you can see you'll get used to navigating in here. I would just try to bring a couple things into an assembly if you've not done that before. And then try showing and hiding a couple of things. You can hide the entire thing. I've named these shade and base so you can just individually hide elements to get them out of your way if they're occluding your view. The other mate I had defined is the very tip top of that screw down feature. I wanted that plane, or that surface, or that face, to be coincident with this face. So another thing you can do is you can select those, and now it's gonna leave it in the same spot, but if you right click and select other, it'll show you all the faces that are near that zone that you just clicked in. So it tries to help you out a little bit. So now we have that large face selected, and then we're going to go to this one. And yeah, it does show them as coincident. So these are all the options. These are the different things that you can do to mate them together. You can also do an offset. So if you wanted some distance between them, say you wanted maybe 0.2 inches between them, you can define that as up or down. Let's see if we can flip that dimension. Yeah, flip it down. So if I click it again, after flipping it down, it should offset it the opposite direction. Not sure why it doesn't want to do it. So over here, you can see you have the same commands over here in the property manager, but right here on screen it appears closer to where your cursor is or where you're working. So there are a couple options for how to do that. So yeah, right over here, if you click flip direction, although it's not laggy now, of course. I clicked it too many times. Okay, I'll flip dimension one more time to show you that. So you can make them offset of each other, but I actually want them coincident. So I'm going to click that again. Hope that it listens to me. There we go. So click green check mark and then exit the mate feature. So now they're fixed in place. So this is a reason that I want to keep these separate. In my view, it's easier to do some modeling around internals without having them actually in my main model, kind of bulking things up and making it a little harder to navigate. So what I will do in here, you can actually edit right inside an assembly. You can edit part, and I can go back to the very first sketch that I did So even though I didn't have this reference, lamp holder in there, I can now go in here, and what I'm going to do is obviously make a spot for this. So I'm just going to rough it in, and usually what I'll do is rough things in and then give some dimensions, and you can either tie it directly to this piece, or you can leave it, kind of free flowing. I probably will define them all anyway, but you could, if you wanted to, you could define this offset. So this sketch and this face right here, you could define an offset, and that gets really important when you are going to do some 3D printing and you want those tolerances accounted for. So let's go ahead and try that. So if you actually right click, I should have my key finder on, but I don't. So if you right click, this will show you all the different things that you can select. So I'm just kind of hovering over where I know this edge is, and it is selecting this edge that is kind of in plane. So I can select these two, and I can actually define a dimension between them. We'll start again. So we'll choose the smart dimension first, choose those, and I'm just going to say 0.02 inches. Now, as far as tolerances, usually I work in millimeters. It's just a little easier, and for some reason, this document I hadn't thought to do that. So I'm just gonna give it a 0.5 millimeter, and I'll see what that is in inches. So that's, you can see it's really little. Let's try this again. 5 millimeters. Sorry, 0.5 millimeters. Okay, so that's 0.019. So that's pretty close to 0.02. So we'll leave it at that. And then this, you could do something similar, or you could have it even be a little bit tighter if you want to make sure that this wall in the middle is fairly structurally sound. So let's take this, and the dimension between those, I'm going to 0.005. So you can see now I've started to constrain them, these sketches, based on features that are outside the model. And this, it's telling me right now that this is not horizontal, which is great to know. So I will click on this, instantly make it horizontal by right-clicking, finding that in the screen right there. So I'm hitting my S key again. If you guys haven't used this S key, it is fantastic. A bunch of commonly used things pop up. So S key, smart dimension, click that face, click this line. Hey, I said click it. It's just not participating now. All right, so did it again. All right, 0.005. Cool. And then I may just make these collinear. So you can see when you click on two things and then right click, it's going to try to help you out by showing all the constraints that are possible. So that is pretty helpful. And obviously you'll see right here that this wall can't go all the way to there because that's going to be in the way. So what I actually have to do is trim this, and then rather than that being continuing all the way down there, you can trim it. Kind of nice about sketches, it's pretty forgiving. If you trim something and it has a dimension associated with it, what I'll do is I'll just delete that first. Everything else should generally, now it's going to make a liar out of me. So it's still trying to make this 5 inches tall. That's what I defined it to be. So I'm just going to bring that right back up, reestablish that. I'm not sure why. Just being a little fussy. So I still want that 5 inches tall. You can see now, oops, display grid. I don't really care about the grid. Now I can kind of pull these back so that they are out of the way. So now that I had that reference brought in, this little edge will be a way to keep, and this is obviously not meant to be injection molded without some discussion or difficulty. But imagine I was just going to 3D print this lamp base. This would be okay. And again, this one right here can't be in the middle because that's where my cord's going to come out. So you can either just delete that line and redraw it. So I'll probably do that right here. But One thing that we did was earlier, I created an axis using this line as a reference. So I'll need to make sure to sketch something back in there so I can give it some space. All right. So right here, you could get a little more, form fitted, but really this is what's going to tie it in place. So up to you how much you want to, accommodate for that. We'll just see, and a lot of times I'll click, and this is a silhouette edge. So if you click on something, if you are in a planar view, you can click against something and that'll show you a silhouette edge, and you should be able to, if it's a straight line, you can even make things parallel to that silhouette edge. So it makes it really easy just to get in the ballpark. So if I was, custom fitting this in place, obviously the cord's going to be off a little bit, but we'll just give it a nice starting point. Okay, then one last trim, because down here you can see again, this is not all dark blue, so it is not a sketch contour that's going to give me a nice revolve, and that's the feature we had. So I'm going to trim that. Here we go. And then just to make sure it stays on that ground plane, or where I had it, I'm going to click that line at the bottom and the origin right here and make coincident. And now it knows that I don't want that to go up or down at all. Just want it to stay still. Then I can define this again. I don't know, 2. So again, if you're a person who likes them all defined, you can certainly do that. 2.1625. I don't know. I go fractional sometimes in my head. I want it to be a nice round number. So we'll edit that sketch, and of course it's very upset because I know exactly why. This is all scary, but don't let it scare you. It'll be okay. So we'll go back to that revolve. And all it's missing, like I said, that axis of revolution, which we had defined as that middle point right here, sketched on that y-axis. So select it again for the axis of revolution, and it should be okay now. So we'll show that. So these little arrows right here, that's showing that it has a constraint that's tied to something outside the model. So this is a really good indicator that now if you delete this E27 lamp base model from the assembly, or if you have it, if you remove this, those constraints might throw an error. So what you can do is, if you don't like that, which I don't really, I may leave it in there for this. A lot of times I will leave it in space where I know it needs to be, and then just not constrain it based off of the face of those models. So something you can do. Either way, some people really like for those things to be constrained. If they change the other model, this one will change with it. But so you can look through this model if you'd like to see how I kind of worked through this. Did a fillet, but it had a little edge out there I didn't like. So a delete face and patch is a really nice way to get a super clean little edge without that little detail. And you will see this in SolidWorks if your faces are exactly mated up together, if that makes sense. If they're basically overlapping in space, you will get this little chunky display when you rotate it around. And really that's showing you, it's really only when one's transparent, but that's showing you that they are sharing that same face. So what I like to do is, I'll just hide this one. I will just move this up a tiny bit. I don't know if you could even see that shift being made. I just moved it up a tiny bit so that when I'm spinning it around and then when I'm rendering it later in KeyShot, you don't get those kind of fighting for space and throwing some weird reflections. So just something to keep in mind. You could even, if you're still seeing it a little bit, you can make it a little farther, but I just like to move it some amount. So we'll roll back through, see if all these will repair. They should. I gave this a little leg at the bottom. And you'll see a surface offset here. So this is, I'm bringing a little bit of surfacing in just to get you guys familiar with it so you can look at this. A surface cut to that little boss extrude that I had made. A chamfer to give him some character. I'll hide that little surface there. I don't really need him anymore. So you'll see him up in surface bodies. I use a lot of surface bodies as tools and then delete them later on. The body, not the feature. A little fillet. And then I created an axis. Again, it's going to be mad because I used this sketch to define the axis. So now that we've got that fixed, it will be fine. So I did a circular pattern here. And you could do as many legs as you want, but I just did 3 equally spaced to 360 degrees right there. And then combine them together because now I want them to be one part. Last little fillet. So that was my kind of quick and easy lamp base. So there's space for that to be screwed into place. But now thinking about it, if a user was, I'm going to hide these sketches. I don't really need to see that. If a user's trying to tighten that down in there, they're not going to be able to do so. So you can quickly go back to the model and go, oh yeah, actually, a person's finger needs to be able to get down in there so they can tighten it. So I don't want this offset to be the same as this one. So let's go ahead and look at these. So if you right click on any line, it'll tell you the properties that it has and the relations that it has. I do want it vertical, but I don't want it to be collinear with this one because it's just not enough space. So I'll delete that constraint that tells it how long this line needs to be, and I will pull that out. And you can see it immediately starts to update in this model. And I'm thinking I probably want maybe 10 millimeters. I know I'm switching back and forth between millimeters and inches here. Let's see what 10 millimeters looks like. Oh, not very much at all. Okay, we'll go a little bit farther. We'll maybe do like half an inch. Should maybe even do more than that, but we'll just start at half an inch. Half an inch. 8 inches. Sure. So, now this is not to say that this is an attractive design. Just thinking about, you know, how a user would get in here to change out the light bulb. So you could have a little cover plate or something in there. But those are all things I'm thinking about when I'm doing a model. So yeah, just think about how a user is going to interact with it. You'd have to be able to screw that down. But now that we have it, we can make any of those changes with that in place. So I edited that. Now I would like to see a light bulb in there. So let's insert component. It's going to be an existing part, and I saved it somewhere. So let's find it. Reference folder, love them. Let's do a T-bulb. Of course, it's going to be an inventor file, not something I can use. Well, let's just see. IPT. I'm not even sure if SOLIDWORKS is going to read that for us, but if not, I guess we will just do this from the top. So let's go in here. Let's go to GrabCAD. Actually, actually use my other address. Let's see if I can. I'll just sign in. New Google Chrome, and then GrabCAD. I don't know if I opened that window. Okay. So from the top, we'll go to the library. So if you just go to the main website, community and library is where you can find that. And I'll type in, how about Edison bulb? I think I want something that looks nice, at least. I think this is the light bulbs that I had downloaded there that were not working, which was rude. So perhaps, well, that one looks interesting. Let's see what file types it has. Step and an IGES, that should work. This one, SolidWorks, like that. Okay, let's try. So this looks like it's going to be another assembly, so I'll show you how I would navigate that if it's something I know I don't really want to mess around with. So downloads, downloaded 2 of those for some reason because I'm just click happy. So I will copy this into my reference folder, and then I will extract it, and I'm just, oops, reference and light bulb. That's the folder I'm going to put it in. Okay, so let's see here. There's a lot of parts in there. take a look. SOLIDWORKS assembly. So I see two, so a B1 and a B11. So if you have a big folder of parts, yeah, I would just click on the assembly first and see what happens. Really, it's going to call up all of these and open all of these at the same time for you. So I think that's probably what's going to happen. An IGES file or a step file, STEP or an IGS. You can also try to open those in SOLIDWORKS and just see if you can get them open. So we're going to try that. Not in the assembly mode, we're just going to open it from scratch and just see if it's going to be a suitable file for us. So light bulb and IGS. Let's see what it gives us. So an IGS and a step file a lot of times will be an assembly file just saved out as a singular part. It won't have any editability that's built into SOLIDWORKS parts and assemblies, but for me, if I'm using it as just a reference, it's perfect, and it doesn't have the history that's going to kind of bog down my machine, and I usually don't need it anyway. So, cool, okay. Well, this is something, sure. So yeah, like I said, this looks like an assembly file to me because it's a little yellow block and a blue block, and it has all these different part files. So what I'm going to do is actually just save this as a solid part. So that will get rid of any mates that are currently, or well, actually it won't because it's not a SOLIDWORKS assembly. It'll just make it a single block bulb. So I'm just going to call it bulb and then use. Keep it simple. Let's just do that. Simplifies it for us. Now you may lose any materiality that this had coming in, but that's okay. So I'm just going to close that file. And now I'm going to see if I can just insert that bulb component that has been now simplified because it's just a single part. Bulb underscore use. A lot of times I will, save these in a folder especially if I have several different references I'm using or pulling from. I'll try to collect those in a more cohesive way. But so yeah, I've got bulb use. Like, yeah, let's insert it. Go on. There we go. Cool. But he is out in space. That's not where we want him. So let's go here. Collapse these so I can see it. It has a little dash, which means it's not fixed. And you'll see that here in the I'm not even sure what to call this now. Now I just want to call it the gumball, but that's not what it is. So you can drag it close. So that's one thing you could do, but I highly suggest that you use the mate features. You can see in here, there are a bunch that I have suppressed. So if you see something in a tree that has this light gray color, that means it's suppressed. And I actually don't know why that's suppressed. Or maybe, yeah, I'm not sure. Fixed? Oh, it's because it's fixed. So because I didn't want this light moving around if I accidentally bumped it or something, I right-clicked and typed fix, but it is constrained. So it's coincident to the top plane of the assembly file, as well as the right plane and the front plane, so that I knew I could have all of those to reference. However, if you right-click and fix it, it will now say fixed, 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 so it won't allow me to adjust any of those. So that's what's happened there. So I'm just going to keep that fixed feature on so that I can drag this around. But if I click this, nope, it is fixed. It cannot be moved. So I really use that to my advantage so I can't screw things up. Yeah, we're going to mate this bulb. So I'll try to pick a face or a surface on here that I think is going to be a good one to make that concentric mate with. So usually the conical faces are good for that. So I'll click this one and maybe this one. So it's trying to make it tangent, which is telling me that's not a pure conical face. So maybe not. So you can look and see what different planes you have as another way to do this. So I can see that is the front plane. And this is just to make sure that everything is lined up. So when you look at the side view, you're seeing all the things all nicely aligned. So I'm going to go back up into the very top. These are the assembly planes. So I'm going to look in the bulb file, find the front plane, and then select them both. Front plane, and then the mate features should pop up. So we want those to be coincident. Perfect. Same for the right planes. Now it's just off kilter a bit. Same for the right plane. Right plane in the assembly file, scroll down, right plane in the light bulb file. Coincident. Now, the top plane would be a little bit trickier. Right now, the top plane is at the very base of the light bulb. That's not exactly where we want it to be in relation to the top plane of the assembly environment. So you can either just drag, now that we have those two planes constrained, it's only going to allow you to drag it up and down. So that is an option. You can do that. So that's one way to do it. Another thing you could do is try to pick this line and the top face here, and then it'll again pop up the mate options that you have, and you could do an offset distance. It's only going to work if they're both flat planes. So now that I picked two, I'm just going to escape to get out of that. You can pick a point. So now it's not going to go sideways. But if you can't find a nice flat plane, you can find a point and then give that a an offset distance. So we'll do 0.02 again. So there you go. So again, it's maybe not the most elegant look right there, but it at least has everything in place. You can visualize it. You can then go back and, maybe do a little bit of extra treatment. Oops, I didn't mean to hide the whole thing, just the shade. Once I get things nicely in place, I don't know why it's all blue. Nicely in place, I will usually save this. So I just have this as side table lamp, and the part file will be an assembly file. So it'll show you all the things that you've modified lately so that it's going to resave all of them. So if you modify something in the assembly, it is going to modify your part file, which usually is exactly what I want. So you can see these weird little trailing edges. I think it's because I previewed this, I looked at this surface extend. If you click Control and B, it should rebuild or re-visualize the part, and those should go away. But yep, right now I'm just going to hide this shade, and you can hide individual parts even if you're not editing a file. But I'm going to edit that part and just add a couple of fillets here just to make this a little more friendly. It just looks a little unfriendly right now. Let's go 1/4 inch, maybe that one too. So you can see I have not spent a lot of time, hollowing this out, which I certainly would do kind of around these legs. But right now, what we do have is a flange for this to be kind of screwed down and clamped onto. We have access to remove the bulb and this feature, like the light bulb base. And another thing we could do is, if we wanted it, nice for a render, what I would probably do is go into this lamp base part and edit it so that the sweep came all the way down and out, and maybe even in a little track right here so that I could kind of contain it. So that's another thing that you could do in here and use that, in the assembly. So right now, so I might as well just do that. So I'm going to leave that base where it is, and I'm just going to try to find a nice plane to sketch on. Right here seems good. Nice flat plane, love it. You can either just convert entities, from the existing little chord that they've got. See if you can drag it around. Nope, it doesn't like that. So now that I know it's on the right plane and the front plane, I can use my origin to get a really nice circle. And I'm gonna right click on this spline. That was the offset entities curve. And I'm just gonna make sure that the one that I'm drawing is coincident with at least one point on there, and that should be a very good representation of that. I did not mean to select that chain, so I'll delete that. So right now, oops, it doesn't know that it's constrained, so let's see here. I guess I will just use this as a reference. So it's looking for references. It really only knows where the origin is, and where surfaces and edges are in parts that already exist. So sometimes you have to do a little bit of trial and error to get points defined that you can snap to. So a lot of times I will do something like this. So these are, you know, both construction geometry, but if I have this point on the circle and this point on the circle that are coincident with my sketch, it should define it pretty decently. Come on, point and the circle. There we go. Make coincident. And then usually maybe a third one. Okay. Other option is just to see how wide that is and see if I can just drag it to approximate it. It didn't like that, but you can see I've almost got it on that center point. I'm not sure. I guess maybe it's the assembly that's not wanting me to snap it to. So we're just gonna, because this would be a concept file, obviously this is not for sending to production, but for a concept file, this is good enough. Concept file and a rendering. I am going to tell it how wide I want that to be, so I'll go 0.325 inches. It really doesn't want to be near that center, does it? Fine. Okay. Now what we can do, now that's the profile that we're going to sweep. Now we need to sketch the path. And this can be for any number of things, but really what you want to make sure to do is be sketching somewhere that intersects directly with that first sketch. So I'm going to make sure that sketches are visible. And I'm going to sketch on, the right plane. Sketch. Okay. So if you go ahead and draw a line on the right plane, it should show you exactly where that is. So I'm just going to sketch another line out here just so I can kind of see where it is in space. Yep, that's the direction it's going. Okay, so what I want to do is start it off. I can see that it's, you know, the actual wiring is going to be vertical. So I use that as kind of my first point. Actually, that's just a reference. So let's just take this, make sure that it is, in fact, select this sketch right here and that point from our new sketch and make pierce. Now it's not going to like that. I don't know why. Oh, because our center point is not exactly on the center. Okay, so we do have to go back. So let's go back here. And I guess instead of any of these constraints, we're just going to add this little guy. All right. So using that, so now we sketch there, and it's probably still not going to want to help us. Okay, we're just going to define a size. 0.425. Sure. This was just to have something snappy to get it attached. But now that we've got that center point defined, it should be okay. Now watch it not be. All right. Gonna go back into sketch 2, which is on the right plane. So we do want to make sure that point and this point. So you can either try pierce, coincident, can make it coincident with maybe this sketch so that it is right there. All right. Now I should be able to get a spline going here. You can do any kind of spline, style spline, regular spline. I am going to constrain it to be tangent at some point, but I think I want it to come out here, and then here, and then here on the right plane. So you can kind of see where the floor is, and I want to drag this. So this is going to be in the very center. So you want to imagine that it would have a little bit of space below it to touch the floor. And the reason I'm not doing a straight line down is because there is a little bit of flex and a little bit of wiggle in like electrical cordage. So usually I'll want to just let it do its thing, and let it not be super vertical. So that seems like it has a little bit of movement. You know, it's going to lie on the desktop, but maybe not too rigidly. So I'll just kind of play around here. Keeping in mind that is probably the center line. So bring that down, and we'll have a chance to look at it again. And you can constrain all of this, you certainly could, or make it a couple of different splines, but first I want to just see what it looks like. So I have constrained, especially click on this edge of the spline and your straight line, and that's our tangent constraint right there. So it's gonna flow nicely. Now we're gonna do a sweep. Swept boss, and that's gonna be your sketch profile in that first one and the profile that you're going to sweep. So pretty easy. I don't want to merge it with anything, so I'm going to go into options and make sure it does not say merge because I don't want to. And you could take that out as far as you wanted to, really. But yeah, that's probably how I would do it, just so that it flowed a little better. It looked more realistic if I was going to put it in a rendering. You could even put a plug on the end or just trail it off a little bit longer. And it does have this. Oh, I guess I have this mated to somewhere else in the assembly. Well, how rude. Okay. For the purposes of this, I think most of that should have been useful. So now you have a light bulb in place. I'm gonna go ahead and hide the eyeball so it'll hide all my sketches and axes. So you have a hole for the cord to go through. You now have a hole for that lamp base to be inserted into and to access that. So I guess one more thing I would do is if I was going to 3D print this, I would certainly hollow it out on the bottom side, which you can try here. So if you want to get back in here, now this will be just for 3D printing, so obviously not mold friendly, but if we want to shell it, let's see what it looks like. Just show preview, see what it does. O5. Now, of course, probably because I have all this in here, I was going to say it's not going to help me at all, but yeah, kind of. So now we can take a look. Oh, that's really thin. I didn't mean to make it that thin. That's silly and not what I want. So I probably would do a little more, maybe just even cutting up into it. So we're just going to delete that shell for now. Delete. All right. So yeah, that was mating some reference parts in there just for a little bit of improved clarity on what you need to have where. So I hope that helps a little bit.